The silence before dawn in Kandahar province held secrets that would haunt Lieutenant Commander Marcus Brick Donovan for the rest of his career. At 3:47 hours, his encrypted satellite phone buzzed with coordinates that didn't exist on any official map. The voice on the other end belonged to someone he'd never heard of, call sign Phantom, requesting immediate air support for what intelligence classified as a priority elimination mission. 12 high-value targets. Remote compound. Time-sensitive. The kind of operation that either ended careers or made legends. What Donovan didn't know was that Phantom had been watching the compound through her scope for 37 hours straight, mapping patrol routes, counting shadows, calculating wind drift at distances most snipers couldn't even see. Captain Lyra, Phantom, Blackwood lay motionless on a rocky outcrop 2,000 meters from her targets, her custom-built Barrett rifle an extension of her body. The weapon bore 17 hash marks on its stock, 17 confirmed kills across 3 deployments. Today, she planned to add 11 more. Donovan's doubt began the moment he saw the mission brief. A lone sniper, female no less, claiming she could eliminate nearly a dozen insurgent commanders simultaneously. It sounded like Hollywood fiction. His SEAL team had worked with plenty of snipers, but this operation required precision beyond human capability. The compound housed leaders of 3 separate terror cells who'd finally gathered for what intelligence suggested was a major planning session. Missing this opportunity meant watching months of careful surveillance dissolve into the Afghan mountains. "Control, this is Bravo 6, Donovan radioed back, his voice carrying the skepticism that would soon transform into awe. "Are you certain about this asset's capabilities? 11 targets, simultaneous engagement. That's asking for a miracle." The response crackled through static. Phantom has never missed a shot in combat, ever. Blackwood adjusted her scope's parallax, compensating for the morning's shifting thermals. Through her optic, she could see faces, enemies who'd orchestrated the deaths of civilians, soldiers, innocents. Her breathing slowed to 4-second intervals. Inhale, exhale, the rhythm of a predator preparing to strike. She'd earned her call sign during her first deployment when insurgents swore a ghost was picking off their leadership. They weren't entirely wrong. Blackwood moved through the battlefield like smoke, appearing only long enough to deliver death from impossible distances before vanishing again. Her gender made her invisible in a culture that underestimated women warriors, a tactical advantage she'd weaponized with lethal efficiency. The compound stirred with morning activity. 11 targets, 3 minutes, 1 shot each. Time to prove that doubt could be as deadly as overconfidence. Blackwood pressed her eye to the scope and began her count. Target acquisition commencing. Phantom is weapons hot. The legend of the ghost sniper was about to be written in blood and precision across the Afghan sky. What happened next would redefine impossible. Donovan's Delta Force team maintained overwatch from their Humvees positioned on a ridge 3 kilometers southwest of the compound. Through his binoculars, he watched the sprawling complex, a maze of mud brick buildings, watchtowers, and armed sentries that intelligence had designated as Viper's Nest. 12 confirmed high-value targets, including regional commanders responsible for hundreds of American casualties. The morning sun cast long shadows across the courtyard, where these men had gathered for their clandestine meeting, unaware that death watched them through a 20-power scope. "Ghost Rider, this is Bravo 6, Donovan transmitted to the AC-130 gunship circling at 23,000 feet. "We have visual on the target area. Request immediate standby for cleanup operations." He paused, studying the compound's layout. "Also requesting medical evac route confirmation. This could get messy." Captain Blackwood's voice cut through the radio chatter with mechanical precision. "Bravo 6, Phantom. Negative on immediate air support. I need 3 minutes of radio silence for target engagement. Any aircraft noise will compromise the mission." Donovan exchanged glances with his team sergeant, Master Chief Pete Diesel Rodriguez, whose weathered face reflected decades of special operations experience. Both men had worked with snipers who could drop targets at extreme range, but 11 simultaneous eliminations. That bordered on superhuman. "Phantom, Bravo 6, Donovan replied. "Understand you're requesting complete communications blackout during engagement. Confirm your egress route is secure." "Affirmative. I've been watching these patterns for 38 hours. Every guard rotation, every blind spot, every escape route. They're about to discover that predictability is lethal." Through her scope, Blackwood identified her primary targets. The compound's main building housed the leadership meeting, 9 men seated around a wooden table visible through an open window. 2 additional targets patrolled the perimeter, a spotter in the northwest tower and a roving guard near the vehicle compound. 11 shots, 11 deaths, each requiring different calculations for range, wind, and elevation. Her first target sat at the head of the table, Commander Yassin al-Rashid, architect of 3 suicide bombings that had killed 47 coalition forces. Range, 1,847 meters. Wind, 4 mph from the east. Elevation adjustment, 12 clicks. She centered the crosshairs on his temple and exhaled slowly. The Barrett's report echoed across the valley like thunder. Al-Rashid's head snapped sideways as the .50 caliber round tore through his skull, painting the wall behind him crimson. Before his body hit the floor, Blackwood had already acquired Target 2. Commander Nazir Hassan, bomb maker extraordinaire, never saw death coming. The second round caught him centermass as he rose from his chair, the impact launching him backward into 2 other insurgents. Chaos erupted inside the building as the remaining targets scrambled for cover. But Phantom had anticipated their movements. Target 3 tried to flee through the eastern door, a mistake that cost him his life as Blackwood's third shot shattered his spine at the threshold. 90 seconds elapsed, 3 down, 8 to go. Donovan watched through his binoculars as the compound transformed from a terrorist meeting into a slaughterhouse, bodies dropping with mechanical precision. His skepticism began dissolving into professional admiration. The Northwest Tower guard had heard the first shots and was swinging his rifle toward Blackwood's position when her fourth round removed his head entirely. The heavy bullet's impact sent his body cartwheeling over the tower's edge, landing in the courtyard with a wet thud that sent nearby chickens scattering in panic. Target 5 attempted to reach a radio inside the main building. Blackwood's fifth shot punched through the mud brick wall and his chest simultaneously, the .50 caliber round's devastating power turning his torso into a crimson explosion. She immediately shifted her aim to Target 6, another fleeing insurgent who'd made the fatal error of running in a straight line across open ground. The sixth shot caught him mid-stride, the bullet's impact spinning him like a rag doll before he collapsed behind a stack of concrete blocks. His AK-47 clattered across the courtyard, its metallic scraping drowned out by the screams of surviving insurgents who couldn't locate their invisible executioner. 2 minutes 15 seconds elapsed, 6 dead, 5 remaining. The roving perimeter guard, Target 7, had taken cover behind a technical truck mounted with a .50 caliber machine gun. He believed the vehicle's armor would protect him. He was wrong. Blackwood's seventh shot penetrated the truck's engine block, ricocheted through the cab, and emerged to find his skull. The machine gun fell silent forever. Targets 8 and 9 were huddled together inside the meeting room, using an overturned table as cover. But mud brick walls offered no protection against Barrett's devastating rounds. Her eighth shot pierced the wall and both men simultaneously, their bodies jerking as the bullet passed through them like paper. Blood splattered across ancient carpets as their lives ended in synchronized violence. 1 minute 45 seconds remaining, 2 targets left. Target 10 had reached the compound's radio room and was frantically transmitting distress signals when Blackwood's ninth shot silenced him permanently. The radio equipment sparked and died as the heavy bullet destroyed both man and machine in a shower of electronics and bone fragments. The final target, a young commander barely 25 years old, had pressed himself against the compound's eastern wall, hyperventilating with terror as his leadership structure disintegrated around him. Through her scope, Blackwood could see his eyes, wide, desperate, searching the horizon for death he couldn't see coming. Her 10th shot ended his search forever. 2 minutes 58 seconds total elapsed time, 10 confirmed kills. But Blackwood had promised 11 eliminations, and she always kept her promises. Through her scope's magnification, she spotted movement in the compound's basement, a figure emerging from what intelligence had missed, a hidden bunker entrance. Commander Khalil ibn Masud, the cell's true leader, had survived by paranoia and cowardice. As he climbed from his underground sanctuary, believing the attack was finished, Blackwood centered her crosshairs on his exposed head. "Target 11 acquired," she whispered. The Barrett roared one final time. Donovan lowered his binoculars, stunned into silence as the compound fell quiet except for the distant echo of Blackwood's last shot. 11 bodies lay scattered across the terrorist stronghold like broken dolls, each death delivered with surgical precision from an impossible distance. His radio crackled with Blackwood's calm voice. "Bravo 6, Phantom. Mission complete. 11 confirmed kills, 0 friendly casualties. Compound is secure for intelligence gathering." Master Chief Rodriguez spoke first, his gravelly voice filled with awe. "Sir, in 23 years of special operations, I've never seen anything like that. She just wiped out an entire terror cell in under 3 minutes." Donovan keyed his radio. "Phantom, Bravo 6, outstanding work. How the hell did you? I mean, 11 targets, simultaneous engagement. That's not humanly possible." "Bravo 6, it's not about being superhuman," Blackwood replied, her voice carrying a hint of something deeper, pain, perhaps, or memories of losses that had forged her into this weapon of precision. "It's about making the impossible look easy because failure isn't an option, not when American lives hang in the balance." As Donovan's team approached the compound for intelligence gathering, they passed beneath Blackwood's hide position. She emerged from her camouflaged nest like a wraith materializing from stone and shadow, a compact woman barely 5'6", her ghillie suit making her nearly invisible even in plain sight. Her dark eyes held the 1,000-yard stare of someone who'd seen too much death, dealt too much death, and carried the weight of each necessary kill. "Ma'am," Donovan said, extending his hand. "That was the most incredible display of marksmanship I've ever witnessed. Where did you learn to shoot like that?" Blackwood stripped off her ghillie hood, revealing close-cropped auburn hair and a face marked by wind, sun, and the invisible scars of multiple deployments. "My father taught me to hunt deer in Montana when I was 7. The Marine Corps taught me to hunt men when I was 22. Afghanistan taught me that sometimes hunting men is the only way to save innocent lives." She shouldered her Barrett with practiced ease, the massive rifle looking almost natural in her capable hands. "Commander, with respect, you didn't doubt my capabilities because I'm inexperienced. You doubted them because I'm a woman operating in a man's war. That doubt cost us 37 hours of surveillance that could have prevented the Kabul marketplace bombing these men were planning." Donovan felt the sting of truth in her words. She was right. His skepticism had been rooted in unconscious bias, not tactical assessment. "Phantom," he said quietly, "I owe you an apology, and the United States owes you a debt that can never be repaid." Blackwood's expression softened slightly. "Just remember this moment, Commander. The next time someone tells you a woman can't do the job, remember 11 dead terrorists who learned otherwise." The intelligence gathered from the compound revealed a network of planned attacks that would have killed hundreds of civilians across 3 countries. Blackwood's precision had prevented mass casualty events, saved countless lives, and decapitated one of Afghanistan's most dangerous terror cells in less time than it took most people to make coffee. Her legend was no longer whispered in shadows. It was written in the official record as Operation Ghost Strike, the most successful single-operator elimination mission in Special Operations history. That evening, as the sun painted the Afghan mountains in shades of gold and crimson, Donovan found Blackwood cleaning her rifle with the methodical precision of a craftsman maintaining her tools. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency, breaking down the weapon that had become an extension of her deadly will. "Mind if I ask about your call sign?" Donovan said, settling onto a nearby rock. "Phantom, that's not standard issue." Blackwood continued her methodical cleaning routine, her voice distant as she spoke. Third deployment, Helmand Province. Taliban commander named Hassan al-Ghazi was eliminating entire villages suspected of cooperating with coalition forces. Intel couldn't pinpoint his location. He moved like smoke, never staying in one place more than 6 hours. She held the Barrett's bolt assembly up to the fatting light, inspecting it for flaws. "I tracked him for 2 weeks, learned his patterns, his habits, his fears. The locals started calling me Phantom because I could appear anywhere, strike without warning, then vanish before his men could react. Al-Ghazi became so paranoid he stopped leaving his bunker." Until, Donovan prompted. "Until he made the mistake of threatening a schoolteacher who'd been teaching girls to read. I put a bullet through his head from 1,500 meters while he was executing her in the village square. His men scattered like startled birds, and that entire region's terror network collapsed within a month." She reassembled the rifle with fluid motions, each component clicking into place like pieces of a lethal puzzle. The name stuck because sometimes being invisible is more powerful than being feared. These men understand brutality, but they can't comprehend precision without presence. It breaks their minds. Donovan nodded, understanding now why intelligence had called her their most effective asset. "How many deployments?" "This is number 4, probably my last." Blackwood's voice carried a weariness that went deeper than physical fatigue. "I've got a nephew back in Billings who thinks his aunt fixes computers for the Army. Maybe it's time to actually become that person." "The war would lose one hell of an asset," Donovan said. "Maybe, or maybe the war would gain something more valuable, a veteran who remembers why she fought and chooses to build instead of destroy." She stood, shouldering her rifle. Either way, today 11 terrorists learned that underestimating American resolve, regardless of its package, is a fatal mistake. As night fell over the compound where 11 bodies awaited removal, Blackwood disappeared into the darkness as silently as she'd appeared, leaving behind only the legend of a ghost who'd proven that precision, not prejudice, determined a warrior's worth. The after-action report filed by Donovan became required reading at the Naval Special Warfare Command, not for its tactical brilliance, but for its brutal honesty about unconscious bias in combat operations. He wrote with clinical precision about his initial skepticism and how it had nearly compromised the mission's success. The report's final paragraph became legend in special operations circles. Captain Blackwood didn't just eliminate 11 high-value targets. She eliminated my assumptions about what makes an effective warrior. In 3 minutes, she redefined excellence. The ripple effects of Operation Ghost Strike extended far beyond Afghanistan's borders. Intelligence networks across 3 continents felt the disruption as communication channels went silent and planned operations dissolved without their leadership structure. The Kabul marketplace bombing never happened. Neither did the coordinated attacks planned for Germany and France. Hundreds of innocent lives continued because one woman with a rifle had refused to accept that impossible was permanent. Master Chief Rodriguez recommended Blackwood for the Silver Star, though her classified role meant the citation would remain buried in files few would ever read. Her name wouldn't appear in newspapers or history books, but in the quiet corners where warriors gathered, they would speak of the ghost sniper who turned doubt into legend with 11 perfectly placed shots. At Bagram Airfield, Blackwood prepared for her flight home, her deployment officially complete. 4 tour in the sandbox, 43 confirmed kills, 0 missed shots in combat. Her duffel bag contained the usual collection of deployment memories: a folded flag from a fallen comrade, letters from family, and 17 photographs, not of targets eliminated, but of soldiers whose lives she'd saved through her precision. The Barrett rifle that had become synonymous with her legend would remain in the armory, ready for the next sniper who might need its devastating accuracy. But Blackwood knew that the weapon was merely metal and mechanics. The true power had always been in the hands that held it, the eyes that aimed it, and the heart that accepted the terrible responsibility of dealing death to preserve life. As her transport aircraft lifted off from Afghan soil for the final time, Blackwood watched the mountains disappear below clouds and considered the boy waiting for his aunt's return. He'd never know that she'd prevented countless deaths with her own hands, never understand that his bedtime stories were sanitized versions of a warrior's journey through hell. Perhaps that ignorance was the greatest victory of all, preserving innocence by eliminating those who would destroy it. The ghost sniper was going home, leaving behind a legacy written in precise mathematics: 11 shots, 11 kills, infinite lives saved. Colonel Sarah Phoenix Mitchell reviewed Blackwood's service record in her Pentagon office 6 months after Operation Ghost Strike. As the Army's first female chief of staff for special operations, Mitchell understood the unique challenges faced by women warriors in a male-dominated field. Blackwood's file read like fiction: 4 deployments, 0 missed shots, successful completion of every mission assigned. But it was the psychological evaluations that told the real story. A woman who'd carried the weight of necessary killing while maintaining her humanity. "She's refusing the Silver Star recommendation," Mitchell told General James Hawk Morrison, her superior and longtime advocate for women in combat roles. "Says recognition defeats the purpose of being invisible." Morrison studied the classified photographs from Operation Ghost Strike: 11 bodies eliminated with surgical precision, a terror network decapitated in minutes. What's her plan post-service? Teaching high school mathematics in Montana, wants to coach the girls' rifle team. Mitchell closed the file. "Sir, we're losing one of our most effective assets because she's choosing life over death. I'm not sure whether to be disappointed or proud." Be proud, Colonel. A warrior who knows when to sheath their sword is more valuable than one who only knows how to draw it. Morrison's weathered face reflected decades of difficult decisions. But make sure she knows the door stays open. Someone with her skills might be needed again. 3 time zones away, Blackwood stood before 30 teenagers in her first period algebra class at Billings Central High School. Her students saw a quiet woman who wore practical clothes and explained mathematical concepts with military precision. They didn't know their teacher could calculate wind drift and bullet drop faster than most people solved basic equations, or that she'd used those same mathematical principles to save hundreds of lives. "Mathematics isn't just about numbers," she told her students during a lesson on trajectory calculations. "It's about understanding that precision matters, that small errors compound into large problems, and that getting the right answer can sometimes mean the difference between success and disaster." Emily Watson, a sophomore struggling with confidence, raised her hand. "Ms. Blackwood, were you really in the Army?" "Marines, actually. And yes, I served 4 tours overseas." Blackwood's answer was simple, honest, without elaboration. "Did you ever, was it scary?" Blackwood considered her response carefully. "Fear is natural, Emily. It keeps you alive. But courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing what needs to be done despite being afraid. That applies to mathematics, to life, to everything that matters." After school, she coached the rifle team in the school's basement range, teaching teenagers the fundamentals of marksmanship with the same attention to detail she'd once applied to eliminate enemies at impossible distances. Her students learned safety protocols, breathing techniques, and the meditative focus required for precision shooting. They competed in state championships, won awards, and learned discipline that would serve them throughout their lives. None of them would ever know that their soft-spoken coach had once been whispered about in terrorist camps across Afghanistan as Al-Shabaab, the Ghost, a supernatural force that could reach out from impossible distances and snatch away lives with mathematical certainty. One evening, as Blackwood locked up the rifle range after practice, she found a letter in her mailbox from Commander Donovan. His note was brief but heartfelt. Phantom, the compound you cleared led to intelligence that prevented 17 separate terror attacks across 4 countries. Thought you should know that your 3 minutes of work saved approximately 2,847 innocent lives. The world is safer because you were willing to be its guardian. Thank you for your service and congratulations on your new mission. Those students are lucky to have you. Semper Fi. Blackwood folded the letter carefully and placed it in her desk drawer beside 17 photographs of soldiers whose lives she'd saved during her deployments. Her war was over, but her purpose continued in different form, shaping young minds instead of eliminating threats, building futures instead of ending them. The Ghost Sniper had found peace in the classroom, proving that the greatest warriors are those who know when to choose creation over destruction, education over elimination, hope over fear. On a crisp October morning 2 years later, Blackwood's rifle team captured the Montana State Championship with a performance that left competitors and coaches speechless. Emily Watson, the girl who'd once struggled with confidence, delivered the winning shot, a perfect 10-ring hit at 200 meters that secured their victory. As the team celebrated, Blackwood felt a satisfaction deeper than any tactical success she'd achieved in combat. The local newspaper ran a small article about the victory, featuring a photograph of Blackwood with her championship team. The caption identified her simply as Ms. Lyra Blackwood, mathematics teacher and rifle coach. No mention of her military service, no reference to classified operations or legendary marksmanship. Just a teacher who'd guided her students to excellence through discipline, precision, and unwavering belief in their potential. That evening, Blackwood's phone rang. The caller ID showed a Pentagon number she recognized. "Phantom, this is Colonel Mitchell. I hope I'm not interrupting your celebration." "Ma'am, what can I do for you?" "There's a situation developing. High priority target, extreme range required, time-sensitive nature. I won't insult you by pretending we have anyone else with your capabilities." Mitchell's voice carried the weight of urgent necessity. "I know you've found peace in civilian life, but your country needs you one more time." Blackwood looked through her classroom window at students loading onto buses, heading home to families and futures made possible by warriors willing to stand in the gap between safety and chaos. She thought of her nephew, now 10 years old and still believing his aunt taught mathematics and nothing more dangerous than the Pythagorean theorem. "Ma'am, with respect, I've served my time. There are other snipers." "Not like you. The target is planning something that will make 9/11 look like a training exercise. We have one shot, literally, and we need perfection." Mitchell paused. "Lyra, I wouldn't ask if it weren't absolutely critical. The math is simple. Either you take this mission, or thousands of innocent people die." Mathematics. Always mathematics. Distance, wind speed, elevation, trajectory. The same calculations that determined whether her students' shots found their targets now applied to preventing mass casualty events. The Ghost Sniper had thought her war was over, but precision was a permanent responsibility for those capable of achieving it. "Send me the briefing," Blackwood said quietly, "but this is absolutely the last time." "Understood. Transport leaves Malmstrom Air Force Base at 600 tomorrow. Welcome back, Phantom." As Blackwood hung up the phone, she realized that some people were destined to carry their wars forever, not as burdens but as callings. The mathematics of mortality demanded that those capable of preventing mass death accept the responsibility of dealing individual death. It was an equation with no pleasant solutions, only necessary ones. The ghost sniper was returning to the battlefield one final time, carrying with her the lessons learned in quiet classrooms about precision, responsibility, and the terrible mathematics of choosing who lives and who dies. The target was Alexander, the surgeon Volkov, a former Spetsnaz operator turned international arms dealer, whose latest creation promised to revolutionize urban terrorism. Intelligence indicated he developed a method for weaponizing commercial drones into guided missiles capable of penetrating hardened targets. His buyers included 3 separate terror organizations, planning coordinated attacks on American soil during the upcoming 4th of July celebrations. Blackwood studied the classified briefing aboard a military transport crossing the Atlantic. Volkov operated from a fortified compound in the Albanian mountains, surrounded by sophisticated early warning systems and mercenary security forces recruited from various conflict zones. The man was paranoid, disciplined, and deadly, a former elite soldier who understood the vulnerabilities that had destroyed lesser criminals. "The shot is 4,000 meters," Colonel Mitchell explained via encrypted satellite link. "Extreme range, even for your capabilities. The target exposure window is approximately 15 seconds every morning at 7:30 local time when he conducts his security briefing on the compound's eastern balcony." 4,000 meters, nearly 2.5 miles. At that distance, gravitational drop, wind drift, and atmospheric conditions created variables that challenged the limits of both equipment and human capability. Blackwood had made shots at extreme range before, but never with such catastrophic consequences for failure. "What's the backup plan if I miss?" she asked. "There is no backup plan. Volkov's security protocols mean one missed shot equals mission failure and probable escalation to full-scale military intervention. The Albanian government can't be officially involved, and our diplomatic relationships in the region are complicated." Translation: this was a black operation with no official existence, no backup support, and no forgiveness for failure. The kind of mission that either ended wars or started them, depending on its execution. Blackwood's insertion point was a rocky outcrop overlooking the Korab Valley, positioned to provide direct line of sight to Volkov's compound while remaining invisible to his security forces. She would have one shot, 15 seconds of target exposure, and approximately 30 minutes to escape before the entire Albanian military began hunting for a ghost that officially didn't exist. "Ma'am," Blackwood said carefully, "this isn't a precision elimination. This is an assassination mission that could trigger international incidents if it goes wrong." "Captain, that's exactly what it is, and you're the only person on Earth capable of completing it successfully." Mitchell's voice carried the weight of absolute certainty. "The mathematics are simple. Either Alexander Volkov dies tomorrow morning, or thousands of Americans die in 3 weeks." As the transport aircraft began its descent toward a classified airfield in Montenegro, Blackwood felt the familiar transformation beginning. The high school mathematics teacher was disappearing, replaced by the ghost sniper whose precision had become legend in classified military circles. It was a metamorphosis she'd hoped never to experience again, but the mathematics of mortality allowed no room for personal preferences. Phantom was operational once more, carrying with her the terrible responsibility of preventing mass death through the precise application of individual killing. The equation remained unchanged. One bullet, one target, infinite lives in the balance. This time, the mathematics demanded perfection at a distance that challenged the very definition of possible. The infiltration route took Blackwood through 30 kilometers of Albanian wilderness, traveling only during darkness and remaining hidden during daylight hours. She carried her equipment in a specialized pack designed to distribute weight while maintaining mobility. The Barrett M107A1, broken down into components, 2,400 rounds of match-grade .50 caliber ammunition, advanced meteorological equipment, and survival gear sufficient for 72 hours of independent operation. Moving through hostile territory alone required different skills than classroom teaching, but the mathematical principles remained constant. Calculate distances, estimate travel times, measure risk against reward. Every decision governed by precision, every movement choreographed to avoid detection by Volkov's security patrols and Albanian military units conducting routine sweeps of the border region. On the second night, Blackwood reached her firing position, a natural rock formation that provided concealment while offering clear sight lines to the target compound 4 kilometers away. Through her spotting scope, she could see Volkov's fortress built into the mountainside like a concrete tumor, guard towers, razor wire, satellite communications equipment, and enough armed mercenaries to hold off a small army. The man himself appeared exactly as his intelligence photographs suggested. Tall, lean, bearing the confident posture of someone who'd survived decades of warfare through superior skills and paranoid preparation. His morning security briefing took place on a reinforced balcony protected by bulletproof glass on 3 sides, leaving only a narrow window of vulnerability when he stepped outside to test his communications equipment. 15 seconds, 4,000 meters, 1 shot. Blackwood began her calculations using environmental data collected throughout the night. Temperature, -2 degrees Celsius. Humidity, 67%. Atmospheric pressure, 29.87 inches of mercury. Wind speed at her position, 8 miles per hour from the northwest. But wind conditions varied across 4 kilometers of mountainous terrain, creating a puzzle of air currents that could deflect her bullets several feet in any direction. She fired ranging shots at a distant rock formation, using the impacts to triangulate actual conditions versus theoretical calculations. The differences were substantial. Mountain winds created microclimate variations that turned precision shooting into educated guesswork amplified by extreme distance. By dawn, Blackwood had refined her calculations to account for environmental variables, but the margin of error remained uncomfortably large. At 4,000 meters, even a perfect shot could be deflected by wind currents impossible to predict with complete accuracy. She was attempting something at the very edge of human capability, betting thousands of lives on mathematical theories that had never been tested at such extreme ranges. 7:29 hours. Volkov emerged from his compound's main building, walking toward the communications balcony with the same ritualistic precision that would either save or doom him. Blackwood centered her crosshairs, controlled her breathing, and prepared to discover whether mathematics could overcome the impossible. The Barrett's bipod legs dug into frozen stone as Blackwood made final adjustments to her scope's elevation and windage turrets. 4,000 meters demanded mathematical precision beyond normal sniper protocols. She was operating in theoretical territory where ballistic calculations became educated guesses amplified by desperate hope. Through her scope's 25 power magnification, Volkov appeared as a distant figure moving with military discipline across his compound's courtyard. Intelligence had mapped his routine with obsessive detail. Every morning at exactly 7:30 hours, he would climb to the eastern balcony, conduct a radio check with his security teams, then spend 15 seconds scanning the surrounding mountains through binoculars, a moment of vulnerability in an otherwise impregnable defensive position. Blackwood's breathing slowed to combat rhythm as she tracked his movement toward the balcony stairs. Wind flags positioned throughout the valley showed shifting air currents that could deflect her bullet by several feet in any direction. At this range, environmental variables became more significant than human skill, turning the shot into a mathematics problem with potentially lethal consequences for incorrect solutions. 0729:45. Volkov reached the balcony and lifted his radio. Blackwood could hear fragments of his transmission through her electronic surveillance equipment, Russian military communications protocols mixed with Albanian phrases, coordinating security sweeps that would begin in earnest after his morning briefing concluded. 0729-55. The arms dealer completed his radio check and reached for his binoculars. 5 seconds until target exposure. Blackwood's finger found the trigger, applying the 3-pound pressure that would send 750 grains of copper-jacketed death across 4 kilometers of Albanian mountain air. 0730-00. Volkov stepped into the open, raising his binoculars toward the eastern ridgeline where death waited with mathematical patience. Time dilated into component milliseconds as Blackwood's world contracted to sight picture, breathing, and trigger control. Her crosshairs held steady on center mass, not the preferred headshot that had made her legendary, but the largest target area that gave maximum forgiveness for environmental deflection. The Barrett's trigger reached its break point. An 8 pounds of precision-engineered rifle transmitted 13,000 foot-pounds of muzzle energy toward a target who would be dead before sound reached his ears. The bullet's flight time at 4,000 meters was approximately 4.2 seconds, an eternity in which wind currents, gravitational drop, and atmospheric pressure would determine whether thousands of Americans lived or died. Blackwood watched through her scope as the projectile traced an invisible arc across the valley, carrying with it the weight of preventing mass casualty terrorism through the precise application of individual violence. At 4.1 seconds, Alexander Volkov's chest exploded in crimson, mist as 750 grains of precisely delivered death tore through his torso, the impact's devastating energy launching his body backward into the compound's concrete wall. His binoculars clattered across the balcony as his lifeless form collapsed like a broken marionette, blood pooling beneath what remained of the man who'd planned to turn American Independence Day into a massacre. Blackwood watched long enough to confirm the kill, then began her tactical withdrawal as Volkov's security forces erupted into chaos 4 kilometers away. Sirens wailed across the compound as mercenaries searched for an assassin who'd already vanished into the Albanian wilderness, leaving behind only the mathematical certainty that extreme precision could overcome impossible odds. The ghost sniper had struck one final time, proving that some equations could only be solved through the lethal application of perfect mathematics. Mission complete. Target eliminated. Thousands of lives saved through one precisely placed bullet fired from a distance that redefined the possible. Phantom was going home. The extraction took 18 hours of movement through Albanian wilderness, evading search parties equipped with thermal imaging and helicopter support. Blackwood moved like smoke through the mountainous terrain, using skills honed across 4 combat deployments to remain invisible while covering 40 kilometers of hostile territory. Behind her, Volkov's compound buzzed with confusion as his organization collapsed without its leadership. Arms deals dissolved into chaos, and planned terror attacks withered without their technical architect. At the extraction point, a remote valley where a stealth helicopter waited with engines running, Colonel Mitchell greeted Blackwood with the mixture of relief and admiration reserved for warriors who accomplished impossible missions. The flight to Germany passed in silence, both women understanding that some operations existed beyond discussion, their details buried in files that would remain classified for decades. The intelligence gathered from Volkov's compound indicates you prevented coordinated attacks on 17 separate targets, Mitchell informed her during the debriefing at Ramstein Air Base. Shopping malls, sports stadiums,